Good morning. Our chimes are rung by one of our newest people here, and so go out of your way to welcome him. Let me welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Monmouth County. My name is Marinelle Mukherjee. My pronouns are she and her. And I work on the worship committee, which is why I'm here, and vice president of staff resources. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. Our mission is to create community, transform ourselves, and transform the world. This morning, we welcome a guest speaker, Reverend Charles Loflin. He serves as Executive Director for UUFANJ, New Jersey, our statewide action network advocating for Unitarian Universalist values through legislative advocacy. He also serves as an affiliated community minister of the UU congregation at Montclair and is a graduate of Meadville Lombard Theological School. I draw your attention to the backside of your order of service for announcements and service information for next week. For those on the live stream and for video viewers, the order of service is available to you in the YouTube service description box. After the service, refreshments will be served in the community room, and people of all ages are welcome to visit with one another. If you are new with us, please do check our website, uucmc.org, where you can sign up to get all the latest news of the congregation by email. We look forward to getting to know you better. Excuse me. Please put your devices on silent as we enter into worship together. Welcome again to this place of love and hope.
What a lovely way to start the day, is it not? Thank you so much. Our call to worship this morning, these words are taken from Reverend Monica Jacobson Tennyson, and this is entitled, "The Heart of Our Faith." And of course, technology decides now it's going to go out on me. There we go. The heart of our faith. What is it that calls you here? That calls you onward? That calls you inward? That leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. So come, let us worship together. And our chalice lighting words this morning are taken from Sean Gibson. Oh, sure. A wild and holy vision. We light our chalice in the spirit of transformation. Nothing stays the same. Everything moving, shifting, changing. Guide us all to a wild and holy vision of our shared humanity. I invite you now to join in singing hymn number 61, "Lo, the Earth Awakes Again," and I invite you to rise in body and or spirit as you are able. So the story I've chosen today for our story wisdom is called Things That Go Away. It is written and illustrated beautifully by Beatrice Alemania. Things That Go Away. In life, many things go away. They transform. They pass by. Sleep always departs. A small wound almost always vanishes without leaving a trace. Music flies away. Soap bubbles, too. One day, lice, luckily, they will also leave. Dark thoughts fade, just like tears dry. And the steam from a cup evaporates. Bad weather goes away. And so does fear. Leaves fall, as well as hair, sometimes. And baby teeth. Dust disappears, but it always comes back. Eventually, everything passes, moves on, changes, but one thing never goes away, and it never will. Never. So now it's time for the blessing of the children.
Every week in this congregation, we are provided with an opportunity to practice generosity. This is your invitation to contribute to the well-being of our congregation and to our social justice partners through the good works of the organization, which receive half of the monies collected each month. Interfaith Neighbors, our Share the Plate recipient for April, assists clients with financial education and rental and mortgage assistance. For example, in February and March, they offered free tax preparation. Through their various programs, 188 individuals received career or life coaching, and 298 families were able to remain housed in 2025. For those of you present here in the meeting house, the plates will be passed by the ushers. Online, instructions are located in the service description box. You may join this time of generosity via text, send your offering by mail, or charge your contribution online with a memo designating an amount to interfaith neighbors. Please give generously.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be back with you here this morning. I am the Reverend Charles Loflin. I am here to tell you that one of the great perks of serving as executive director for UU Faith Action New Jersey are days exactly like this. Days when I get to visit with one of our affiliated congregations. First off, it serves a very pragmatic purpose. It is often through services exactly like this one today that many New Jersey UUs first learn about the work of UU Faith Action. You learn a little bit about who we are and what we do, and you get an invitation to be further involved in that work. And the story of UU Faith Action is an intriguing one if you do not know it. It begins back in 2006. The UU congregation of Princeton felt called to establish a Unitarian Universalist legislative justice ministry in the state. And so they were critical in terms of bringing together some UUs across the state to study this issue, and what emerged was the Unitarian Universalist Legislative Ministries of New Jersey. Boy, that's a mouthful, is it not? And like all good UU institutions, it seems, it was known better for its acronym, UULMNJ. UULMNJ was founded on the model of state action networks. The very first one that was created, a UU state action network, was in California. It is organized as a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are a coalition of those UU congregations in the state who have chosen to come together to be affiliated for the work of social justice, especially legislative justice in the state. We comprise those 19 affiliated congregations and almost 1,600 supporters. Back in 2017, the organization rebranded under our current name, UU Faith Action New Jersey. And we say that our vision is that of a just New Jersey, free from systemic oppression and greed, full of engaged people that are committed to each other, to our communities, and to the earth. Grounded in our Unitarian Universalist faith, we are trying to confront systemic injustice and build a more compassionate society here in the Garden State. How do we do that? By educating ourselves and others on social and political issues, by mobilizing individuals and congregations to act for justice, and by advocating for equitable and sustainable public policy. We are currently structured around 4 priority issues. These make up our task forces that center so much of the work that we do. Those current task forces are criminal justice reform, environmental justice, immigration justice, and reproductive justice. And I want to mention that our reproductive justice task force also is housing our LGBTQ justice efforts as well. It's also very important for us to state that all of our justice work in all of our areas is centered in an anti-racist and anti-oppression lens. We believe that it is only through that lens that any true justice work can be done. And our work reflects the collective efforts of individual volunteers. And the vast majority of those volunteers are, in fact, UUs who are members or friends of a congregation just like this one. If you are interested in learning more about our organization and what we do, please hear me when I say that I want to talk to you. I love to tell the story about what we're doing, and opportunities like services provide space afterwards where I can meet with folks, share more detail about some of the things that we're doing, and let you know about how you might be able to get further involved. Also, I want to point out there's some special folks here in our audience today who can help me in that task as well. So my fabulously gifted administrator, Marlene Miller, is in the back of the room. Wave your hand, Marlene, so folks can see you. If you haven't met Marlene in person, you definitely want to do that. I want to acknowledge Mike Skelly, who's the chair of our Environmental Justice Task Force. He is here in the room today. Mike, wave so folks can see you as well. And I also want to recognize Reverend Julie Newhall, who is here, offering some collegial support. Always glad to see you here. Please, if you have a moment after the service, just to stop by and introduce yourself. We love making those connections. And if you are ever interested in a deeper conversation, whether that is in person over a cup of coffee or via a phone call or a Zoom conversation, we're always happy to make that happen. There is so much going on in this state, in this country, in this world, and our work at UU Faith Action, I think, is more important than ever in terms of bringing our UU values to the public forefront. There are so many different ways that you can get involved, but it really behooves me to point one of them out. If you are not already on our mailing list, the most important thing you can do is go to our website, which is uufaithaction.org, and at the very top of that page, there is a link to sign up for our mailing list. We do not contact anyone who hasn't opted in to receive our communications. So we don't ask our congregations to share with us the contact information of its membership list. The only way you will hear about our programming is either through this congregation or by going and signing up for that mailing list. So I encourage you to do that. And in fact, if you are around after the service and want to sign up, I can help you do that in 30 seconds on your phone. So please stop by, and we would love to have those deeper conversations. Services like this are also important because they give me a moment, a quick moment, an opportunity to express the deep gratitude that I feel for those who make the work of this organization possible. And there are so many of you here in this room to whom that applies. First off, I want to thank Reverend Craig Rubano for his support of UU Faith Action, which continues in a long line of ministerial support here from the UU congregation of Monmouth County. And we are so grateful for that. I also want to point out that you have a fabulous liaison in this congregation who is Molly Walker. And even though she couldn't be here today, she's been doing a terrific job in terms of letting us at UU Faith Action know what's going on here in the congregation. And from what I can tell, sharing back with you the information about what's happening here as well. So if you don't know Molly or haven't connected with Molly about UU Faith Action, please do that. And there's so many others here as well. Judy Stevens has been such a long-time supporter of UU Faith Action. Judy, thank you so much. Rich Held, who served as co-chair of our Immigration Justice Task Force for several years. Rich, it's always good to see you. Thank you for all of that work. And then there are all the rest of you. What do you do that makes such a difference? Well, maybe it's showing up for our Friday action hours. Every Friday at noon, we meet on Zoom. We present an issue or two that you can take action on right then and there. No prior experience necessary. You come in as you're able, you learn about an issue, and you take that action. Or maybe you participate with one of our task forces that I mentioned, where you dive deeper into the issues that are going on. You learn more about the pieces that are happening. There are monthly calls that each of our task forces hold. That's a great way to get involved. Maybe you attend one of our UU Faith Action events. So we have an issues conference each fall. We have our annual meeting coming up in May, which this year is going to be at the Morristown congregation, where we will be talking about the business of what we do, but also our vision for New Jersey in the future and what comes next. And this year, we're looking at the possibility of also including as part of our annual meeting a protest together, since we will be so close to the Roxbury facility where ICE is attempting to open a new detention facility. So we're going to see if there isn't some sort of event that we can tie to that. So after our annual meeting, we're going to see what we can do there. You'll be hearing more about that. So whether it is responding to the action alerts that go out when there's a pressing issue, whether it's attending one of our events, whether it's showing up in Trenton to rally in the halls of the State House Annex, or at a protest, or at a rally, or at an educational event, all of those things are how we do the work that we do. And I especially want to recognize the very, very many people in this very room right now who took part in our lame duck legislative advocacy work that occurred from November through the end of January this year. As you may know, in New Jersey, we have a 2-year legislative cycle, and it is often in that lame duck session where things kick into high gear and so much gets done. So many UUs across the state got involved during the lame duck session, and many of you here did as well. I'm able to see the data in terms of the folks who respond to our action alerts, and I am so grateful for the work that you did, whether it was showing up at a rally, showing up in Trenton, responding to one of the phone zaps, working for the bills that we were trying to get passed. In fact, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you took part by responding to an action alert or showing up for one of our events or just following our email correspondence about what was going on, would you raise your hand? Just look around the room for a moment. That's a significant percentage of this congregation. Thank you. That is how it works. It's individuals getting involved because collectively our voices have a larger voice. Also, let me say this. The other group of folks who always need to be thanked are those who financially support the work of this organization. Both as a congregation and as individuals, you help to make the work possible. 30% of our organizational budget comes from congregational donations, from the affiliated congregations. That leaves 70% of our budget that comes from individual donors. And we are so grateful for the generosity that makes our work possible, that makes it possible for us to invest in staff who are working hard every day to make this a more just New Jersey. And as we look forward to the future, it is that stability of a financial base that allows us to plan for what more might we do. How might we be more responsive to the needs in this state? So again, thank you for all of that. Now, that's sort of the commercial part of the programming today. It's a little mandatory when I go to my congregations to be able to do that. And it is at this point where, in my typical UU Faith Action sermon, I have to make a call that can be a bit difficult, because I have very precious few minutes left. And the question is, what do I want to talk about in that time? Sometimes I will spend that time sharing in more detail about each of our task forces, diving into some of the key issues that are in our state, because every one of our task forces is doing critically important work at this moment. I could spend the rest of my time talking about environmental justice, or talking about criminal justice reform, or the needs of the reproductive justice and LGBTQ rights, or immigration justice. I could easily do that. Other times, I stand in our pulpits and I talk about one emergent, very urgent issue, because sometimes there is something that is coalescing that needs our action. God knows there are a list of things I could choose there. All we need do is open our news feed, and we are replete with examples of emergency needs to take action. In fact, the truth is, the problem at the moment is there are so many issues that need our action that it becomes very, very difficult to focus on one or two or three of them. And friends, that is by design. That is how they are keeping us from being effective. It is a constant barrage that keeps us distracted, unfocused, and uncertain about what to do. So that is, in fact, what I want to spend my minutes talking about a little bit today. The sense, at least that I have, that we are living right now through a time of enormous uncertainty, of ambiguity, and frankly, a time of great turmoil. Because for me, it feels like everything, and I mean just about everything, is in a state of transition. And if I'm completely honest with you, the changes that are happening scare the hell out of me. I don't know about you, but here are some of the words I find myself using to describe the current state of the world. Scary, dangerous, unprecedented, dystopian, chaotic. Does that resonate for you? Are you feeling that too? Do you struggle to open your phone every morning wondering what's going to be on the news? Do you get to the point where you have to turn off the television because you just can't take another second of it? Do you feel like I do? Like this is change that's happening at breakneck speed, and it feels like our very world might be falling apart around us as we watch? Are you feeling that? And if we are feeling that, I think that leads us to a list of questions we really need to ask ourselves. What are the characteristics of the change that we are facing? Are they, in fact, unprecedented? Or is that simply what we're being led to believe? Is this a unique moment in time that calls for something very particular and very special? Or is this really just part of what always happens? And it is our proximity to the events that makes us feel that they are so overwhelming. Is it just my own privilege talking because maybe for the first time in my life I'm feeling the oppression that so many others have lived day in and day out for their entire lives? And change itself, change isn't always bad, is it? We say that we value transformation as a religious faith principle. Doesn't transformation require change? But not all change is good. Some change is not transformational at all. Some change is destructive. Some change denies liberty, denies life, denies liberation. So how do we know what change we can live with and what change we must resist with the very core of our beings? There's the rub. What change is coming? What change is here? And how should we respond? Greg Sattel is the author of a book called Cascades: How to Create a Movement That Drives Transformational Change. Here's one of the things that he says. Humans tend to think about things in a linear way. We assume that progress happens step by step. You put a little money into a college fund. You grow a business customer by customer. We measure, plan, we execute accordingly. One day follows the next, and we try to make a little progress toward our goals. And yet, many have observed that shifts are often abrupt. Hemingway quite famously described change as happening gradually and then suddenly. Thomas Kuhn explained how revolutions unfold in abrupt paradigm shifts. And the mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot described change in terms of what he called Noah effects and Joseph effects, with massive shocks disrupting periods of continuity. I want to dig into that idea a little bit more. Noah effects and Joseph effects. Those names are taken from their namesakes in the Jewish scriptures, the story of Noah and the story of Joseph. You may recall the story of Joseph. Joseph was the one with the amazing Technicolor dream coats. He's the dreamer, the one who sees what is coming. And in his visions, he sees 7 years of prosperity on the horizon, followed by 7 years of famine. And because of his foresight, he is able to put into place processes that ensure the survival of his people. That's a Joseph effect kind of change. That is change that is continuous and somewhat predictable, longer-term patterns that are emerging. 7 good years followed by 7 bad years. Change you can see and prepare for and do something about. By contrast, there's the story of Noah. You know Noah, the guy with the ark. The one who understands that it's about to start raining and it ain't gonna stop. So Noah has a job to do and fast. Noah's got to build an ark and bring the animals on 2 by 2 in order to ensure that something is going to survive. Because in a Noah effect, the storm is coming. It is chaotic and it is unpredictable, and there's not a lot of time to prepare, and action has to be taken now. You see, change often falls into one of those categories. It's either change that is of the characteristic of a Joseph effect, or it is change that is a Noah effect. Those are very different in nature. And to be perfectly clear, no one is suggesting that one kind of change is good and one kind of change is bad. They are just different, and they require a different response from us. How we react is important to the context of what's going on. And again, you don't necessarily know in the moment if you're looking at a Joseph effect or a Noah effect. What you may be convinced is a Joseph effect may in fact be something completely new, with storm clouds on the horizon unlike any we've seen before. But sometimes the storm clouds that are on the horizon are a direct result of how we have been living for a very long time. Change. There's another lens that we can use to evaluate change, and this actually comes from our Unitarian ancestor, the minister Theodore Parker. How many of you have heard that name, Theodore Parker? Oh, good UUs, I see. Even if you've never heard that name, I suggest that you probably do know something about Theodore Parker, although you may not know exactly why. How many of you have heard this quote? "The arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Who said that? That's not what Theodore Parker said. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. said. But Martin Luther King Jr. was paraphrasing Theodore Parker. Here's what Theodore Parker actually said. "You see a continual and progressive triumph of the right. I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. But from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." That's a little more nuanced, don't you think? A little deeper. There's another saying, "Government of the people, by the people, for the people." Who said that? Lincoln, the very last line in the Gettysburg Address. But Lincoln was actually paraphrasing Theodore Parker again. Theodore Parker said on numerous occasions some version of this: "Government of all the people, by all the people, for all the people." With all due respect and apologies to Abraham Lincoln, the omission of that word "all" makes a big difference. Parker delivered a sermon in 1841 that was called "The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity." The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity. It was for an ordination of a Unitarian minister. That sermon became a foundational text for Unitarianism, for Universalism, and eventually for Unitarian Universalism. Here is an excerpt from that sermon. those of all ages before us were quite as confident as we that their opinion was truth, that their notion was Christianity and the whole thereof. No doubt an age will come in which ours shall be reckoned a period of darkness, when we groped for the wall but stumbled and fell because we trust a transient notion, not an eternal truth. In actual Christianity, there seems to have been, ever since the time of its earthly founder, two elements. The one transient, the other permanent. The one is the thought, the folly, the uncertain wisdom, the theological notions, the impiety of humanity. But the other is the eternal truth of God. That lens, the transient versus the permanent, I think is an important one. And I think it's important to think a little bit about Theodore Parker's context. So this is happening in 1841. What was going on in the country in 1841? Well, 2 decades before, in 1820, the Missouri Compromise was passed. How many of you history buffs recall the Missouri Compromise? So that was a balancing act to try to patch the holes in what was happening in the country between the growing rift between those slave-holding states and the non-slave-holding states. It basically created a 50-50 balance that worked for a while. That was in 1820. In 1831, that balance became tested by the Nat Turner Rebellion. If you know your history, that was a slave uprising that happened in Virginia. And it marked the growing divide in the country between the slaveholding states and the non-slaveholding states. And it was a clear precursor to civil war. That's 1831. Parker's delivering those words that I read to you in 1841. Around 1840, this country was deeply divided. How deeply divided? Well, the political parties basically couldn't agree on anything. They could no longer get legislation done because they couldn't agree on anything, and they were vilifying each other with the worst possible language. There were 2.5 million people who were enslaved in this country. 2.5 million people. There was an enormous economic divide between the industrialized North and the agrarian South, but there was also a growing inequality between urban centers and rural centers. The top 10% of the population in this country controlled roughly 55% of the wealth. That was an unheard of number at that moment. I'm not even going to tell you what the number is now. Parker's sermon was delivered only 9 years before the passage of the Fugitive Slave Act. What did the Fugitive Slave Act do? It required federal, state, and local officials to be complicit in the detention and return of runaway slaves, and it criminalized every U.S. citizen who tried to do the right thing. Unprecedented, we say. Yet it sounds very, very familiar, does it not? And keep in mind that religion was trying to respond to this context. And the religion of the day, Unitarians were extremely influential, extremely important. We were thought leaders in all areas. We were thought leaders in intellectual, social, and literary circles. And in the 1840s, Theodore Parker himself was becoming the emerging theological voice for the transcendentalist movement that was arguing for a new way of understanding faith, not a cold, dead faith based on doctrinal issues that never change, but something more alive. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And in the midst of all that change, cultural, political, intellectual, Parker proposes this theological lens for evaluating change: the transient and the permanent. There are things that are transient, that are tied to culture, that are forms, and those things to Parker didn't matter as much as what was the core, the essence, what he thought of as the permanent, ongoing truth. Parker would essentially say that we must accept those changes that are necessary in the transient, but we must hold fast and resist those changes that would affect the essence of the thing we hold most sacred. That's a useful paradigm for us, my friends. Because the real question for us to ask in the midst of all the anxiety and the overwhelm that we're feeling is, what are we living through? Is it a transient change? Or is it a change in the permanent character of something we hold sacred? Because depending on which of those we answer, it changes what we must do. The critical question to ask of Parker's lens for change, though, is this. It's not whether the transient and the permanent are two useful ways for deciding if change is something we should support or resist. The question is, how do you know? How do you discern which is which? And one of Parker's arguments was time. That in the fullness of time, that which lasts is more likely to be the permanent, and that which fades away over time is more likely to be transient. But that doesn't help us much, does it? Because we don't have the advantage of being able to look back 10 years from now at what's happening and know how we got through this. We've got to figure it out in the moment. And that's hard. But it's still the question we must ask: the transient versus the permanent. I also just want to say quickly, if there are any Buddhists in the room, you may be bristling a little bit. You may be thinking to yourself, but is anything permanent? Isn't permanence the actual folly that we're trying to fight? Norman Fisher says of this, he says impermanence is Buddha nature. He says practitioners have always understood impermanence as the cornerstone of Buddhist teachings and practice. All that exists is impermanent. Nothing lasts. Therefore, nothing can be grasped or held on to. Impermanence is the number one inescapable and essentially painful fact of life. It is the singular existential problem that the whole edifice of Buddhist practice is meant to address. Everything vanishes. Therefore, there is nothing more important than continuing the path with diligence. So I have to say, I acknowledge that our Buddhist friends are on to something there. There is a fair question to ask about, is permanence even truly possible? But friends, I'm not willing to embrace the idea that nothing lasts. As in our story today, our wisdom story, there are some things that go away. Most things go away, but not everything. Because at the end of the story, you see a mother embracing her child. Because love matters. And love makes a difference. Does love change? Yep. Does it morph and adjust? Yep. Is it completely predictable and linear? No, it is not. But is it impermanent? I don't know. Maybe in the grand scheme of the universe, all that is human is meaningless. Maybe. But I'm just not willing to go there. I keep coming back to a center that there is worth holding on to. It is the theological center of my faith, and it is the theological center of our shared Unitarian Universalist faith. And that is, love is at the center of everything. That's why social justice matters, because in the words of Dr. Cornel West, justice is what love looks like in public. So where does that leave us this Sunday morning? Are these unprecedented times? Are they enormous, ambiguous moments of change? Is everything falling apart? Is it a Joseph moment that we should have been able to predict by just looking at what was going on? Or is it a Noah effect where the clouds have suddenly come and it's raining and we haven't built the ark? Are we navigating transient change that is uncomfortable but necessary? Or are we being called to resist changes that would take away the very essence of the things that we hold as most sacred? I don't know for sure. But I am reminded of our UU theologian, James Luther Adams, who spoke of how freedom, rightly used, seeks freedom and social justice for others, and freedom and community cannot be achieved without, in his words, the power of organization and the organization of power. Friends, that's what we're trying to do at UU Faith Action. We are trying to live into that transformative change. And to do that requires the power of organization and the organization of power. If we're willing to do that, keeping love at the center, then whatever change may come, we will survive. Blessed be, and amen. In this moment of prayer and meditation, we're going to do something simple together. I invite you to say to yourself, whatever change may come, love will find the way. And again, to yourself, in your own head, whatever change may come, I know that love will find a way. Turn to someone sitting next to you. Right now, turn to them and say, whatever change may come, I know that love will find a way. Find someone sitting near you, maybe not right next to you, and just make that eye contact and say, whatever change may come, love will find a way. Friends, this is the way. We are not alone. It is not done. It is not over. There is hope to be found, and it is found in one another, and it is found in love. Let's say it together like we mean it. Whatever change may come, love will find the way. I invite you to join us now in our closing hymn. It is hymn number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Benediction this morning are from Michelle Collins. Changes abound around us, within us, between us, in our communities, our neighborhoods, and our beloved faith communities. Changes abound. May we each find the balance point we need as we move through our ever-changing world. The balance between the old and the new, between the known and the unknown, between the familiar and perhaps the bold and risky possibilities there may be there, waiting. Go in peace.